Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Byron Bernstein, a.k.a. Reckful. He was an online gamer. He attained a lot of acclaim and notoriety and exposure for this. He was a Twitch streamer. He did manifold things. He was very accomplished in the online world. He was in, I believe, some tournaments of World of Warcraft, and he gained some renown for it because he finished in very high standing in place in a lot of number of those events. I don't know the full details of that because, I mean, this is an impromptu video, of course. And what I know about him, though, I mean, another thing I know about him is that his birth date is May 8th, 1989. He was a Taurus and had a Gemini or Cancer moon, depending on birth time. Of course, what I had to do once again is improvise and do a solar/sunrise chart where I put the sun at the same position as the ascendant, which of course would be Taurus. Now, the thing about this is, I mean, Taurus people, of course, could have great financial acumen. Having a Taurus sun, the basic want, can be associated with money and values, and I'm sure he was very shrewd in terms of making money, generating income. He had his Venus in its dignity in Taurus as well, and that could also right there could be being very shrewd in terms of making money and finding and also understanding a lot about money in terms of its like for its value, for instance, and also having a lot of persistence and patience and perseverance in generating income, having Venus being in Taurus, the sign that is associated with those words I just said. Anyway, and the thing about this is too, it's sad to have a passing like this. He was only 31 years old when he passed away. You're talking about really essentially the prime of one's life. And now, according to the New York Post report online, it stated his girlfriend had confirmed that it was a suicide. When I went on Wikipedia.org, it stated it was unconfirmed, but I'm going with the suicide at least tentatively right now. I mean, that's just it's confirmed by a New York Post article. I feel that's enough to say that it is confirmed, but probably won't be really 100% corroborated till it is on Wikipedia. But everything but 100% confirmed outside. Anyway, some other things I noticed in his chart. I noticed there was something about that he had been influenced or impacted strongly by, he had a sibling that died when he was very young. That was interesting. The solar/sunrise chart, of course, very speculative. It puts the moon at 29 degrees Gemini, and of course, 29 degrees can be about issues that haven't been reconciled or resolved. It is a critical crisis degree. If somebody were to have the moon at 29 degrees at Gemini, it's also about, I mean, you're talking about 29 degrees in astrology can reflect the full culmination of energy of a sign. At least I believe it does. And you're talking about manifold feelings and emotions being in Gemini, emotional versatility, going from one feeling to another very mercurial energy. And you're talking about it at 29 degrees. That could be very powerful. And also, he has his Chiron, not far from natal Chiron, conjuncting that moon at that placement based on the solar sunrise time of birth. Now, a thing about it is also when you're talking about the moon in Gemini, the moon astrology can be close. What's close to it could be our family. You're talking about 29. You're talking about Gemini can be connected with siblings. So this could be about some issue that maybe he had to deal with that was unresolved, that was with an ending with the sibling, is one way that could manifest in penalty. Also, at the time of this apparent suicide, he had transit Venus, very close proximity to his natal Mercury in Gemini. Of course, Mercury can actually, I mean, a lot of people just look at Mercury about, communication and thinking, but Mercury can also be associated with siblings. He has it in the sign associated with siblings, Gemini. Venus can be about our sentiments. It could be where he might have indulged in a lot of these feelings regarding, sadly, that issue connected with a sibling, sadly. And it might, it just made me wonder if that might have affected his mental state. Now, it was stated that he had been battling, at least previously, with bouts of depression. So he had been dealing, feeling, at times in the past, feeling somewhat despondent, melancholy. And what I noticed too is that his Mercury in Gemini made a number of, you could say at least, well, loose inconjuncts to Capricorn planets, Uranus, Neptune, and of course Saturn is the planet associated with despondency, dejection, and depression, sadly. Now, the thing about him is, though, on one positive note, I noticed that Jupiter was close to his second house cusp, Jupiter in Gemini. So it's not surprising. It was very fortuitous for him in terms of making money through doing manifold things, a wide divergence of things. Gemini could be very versatile energy. Of course, he had three planets in Gemini. He had Mercury, and well, maybe three depending on the time of birth. He definitely had Jupiter, and he had Mercury in Gemini, but the moon either Gemini or Cancer, depending on his time of birth. And anyway, and also Jupiter in the chart falls in a was actually that you would call the apex point of a yod configuration involving Saturn and Pluto making a sextile to each other, and Jupiter in Gemini near the second house cusp. When you're talking about that apex point, that focal point of where it's called the finger, I guess you'd say the finger of the yod, that point of action in the yod configuration, that the point that is in conjunct by two other points, that is a very significant point. And of course, being June, and a person can really have prodigious and monumental achievement if they could work through the negatives of the inconjuncts to that point. And you're talking about Jupiter in Gemini near the second house cusp. Of course, that could be very auspicious. You're talking about Jupiter, the planet of luck and fortune, and being in Gemini, perhaps being able to do things with dexterity, with the cerebral ability, a variety of things in terms of generating income and making money, and being able, of course, to accumulate possessions as well, given you're talking about it's near the second house. And anyway, and the thing about this, but really the monumental achievement would be done through having luck through cerebral ability and making money through that, and making money through a variety of things. And he was also some kind of developer, I believe, for some company. It was for like the mouse, something with the mouse controller for the computer. And it was some company that was associated, I believe, with some development of the mouse control for the computer. But you may want to look that up and confirm that. But the thing about it is, he obviously had a very successful life, and you're looking at one thing, I mean, that stood out to me, of course, with the suicide, is that he had transit Chiron in Aries in the 12th house. And if he did commit suicide, I'm wondering if it might have been through some gunfire. It might have been with shooting himself in the gun, and being Aries, possibly in the head. That is really the way most people, a lot of people, maybe not most, but a lot of people would do that anyway. But that transit may reaffirm that, but again, we don't even know. I don't even know if it's 100% confirmed if he actually did commit suicide. This was based on a report on the New York in the New York Post, and it wasn't on Wikipedia. Again, that was unconfirmed on Wikipedia. Transit Mars was at least a loose conjunction to his 12th house cusp in the solar sunrise chart, so that could sometimes indicate an ending suicide through some volatile means. as well through some kind of and it may well have been gunfire. It would not surprise me that this was done through a very through that, but time will tell when this story develops, of course. And really, another thing that stood out to me is that he had a stellium in that Capricorn in generational planets, but it still could be strong, I would say. I mean, the stellium consists of Uranus and Neptune and Saturn in Capricorn, and you have, I mean, the way that I think that might have manifested and panned out for him. You're talking about your Uranus being, of course, could be associated with computers, the internet, and then you have a conjunction to Neptune. Neptune could be about things that are fantastical, playing in your fantasy world of games in this, as far as in this example, and followed by Saturn, and Saturn can be also the career as well. And you're talking about Capricorn energy doing so, perhaps with a lot of discipline, a lot of consistency, and maybe it was done even in a way that was very regimented with him, and felt a lot of responsibility as well with that. And I think it's really not much more I was going to say about his chart, but I noticed that, and it was very kind of eerie to me. I mean, a lot of his house setup was similar to mine based on the solar sunrise chart. It also put Aquarius at 1 degree at the MC. And it was actually very close by minutes of arc to mine as well. I have Aquarius 1 degree Aquarius. I mean, I have my midheaven MC is 1 degree Aquarius, and that's reputation, public image. Of course, that could manifest in a multitude of ways with him. Of course, that's that reputation, the public image, and that career of somebody connected very strongly with the internet and things that are online and online gaming. In his, I would say, in his case, and he obviously was very prominent on Twitch. And thing is, people, and he also had transit south node had recently made a rather long separating conjunction from the natal Uranus. And when you're talking about the south node in astrology, it could be about what we're leaving. And sadly, this was like an indicator perhaps of leaving behind an online community where he basically made a career out of that. And sadly, I wonder if that's how that manifested and panned out with him. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.